The following is a White Roof Radio special audio presentation. Pat McKenna interviewed at the LA Auto Show 2018.
This is
Have
nice.
you driven this?
Yeah. I had a press car for a week, and it's so, just since we're recording, all right, I've got Pat McKenna trapped
Thank you.
in a Mini Countryman hybrid. And Pat, it's fantastic to talk to you in this.
It's good to talk to you.
This is
Good to talk to an old friend.
Yeah. This is old school. All right, we've got some various things happening here in the system.
It's the car confused by being in an auto show.
Yeah, this is not its natural habitat, is it? So this is the Jim McDowell style, as you were mentioning earlier.
Yeah, which is actually quieter because we're in the comfort of a mini plug-in hybrid. And actually, I'm just thinking back to when we first met. So December 1st will be my 8th year with Mini because I started December 1st, 2010. So here we are 8 years later.
And you started out, well, I know you spent a lot of time in product.
Yeah, the majority of the time. So out of the 8 years, probably 6.5 in product, and then the past year and a half in marketing.
So year and a half in marketing, you've got a car company that is obviously, in my opinion, really at a point now where you've got great product, you've got a quality lineup of product as well. And this is the most sort of like mature I've seen the Mini lineup ever. But I guess tell us a little bit about some of the climate you see right now in terms of the U.S. marketplace. Obviously, sales have been steadily kind of either down or sort of flat for a little while now, and there's some challenges out there.
Well, you use the word quality, and I just want to pick up on that first because when I started. Quality was definitely there were issues with the second generation cars. We had timing chain issues. We had things related to that, turbo failure because oil levels would run low. And the reason I mention that, like you should never, from a public relations standpoint, talk about that, right? But the counterpoint to that is now. And now, the Mini Countryman that we're sitting in is the number one small luxury SUV vehicle in Consumer Reports. Ahead of Mercedes, ahead of Audi, ahead of, let's just say, everyone. Okay? And that is extremely gratifying to see because I remember visiting Consumer Reports, being at their test track, and I said to them when this generation of cars came out, I said to them, I want to see a day when we're at the top of the list and recognized for all the quality that we've built into these cars, and that day is here. Yeah. The challenge with Consumer Reports is because it's a nonprofit, you can't shout it from the rooftop. You have to be clever in how you communicate it. But I just wanted to pick up on that from that's just the quality story on how far that we have truly come in those 8 years.
I do want to press on that a little bit because I think it's interesting. You have a unique position because you were in product during that second generation, and now you are sort of on the other end of it, seeing the sort of come to fruition in terms of quality. What happened?
So I think when I joined, there was absolutely a rally cry to address some of the topics. And I'm going to give you an example of one pivotal thing that I thought was instrumental. For example, like all of these cars have low oil sensors. So now every car has a screen. It will show you that this car is running low on oil. That was something the second generation cars didn't have. It required customers to really pay attention to this. And I think this is what led to, some of the challenges. People, not the people listening to this. The people who listen to this check their oil, but there were people who didn't. And that's when it ran into problems. So, but we had really the highest levels of attention in engineering. We had them come. We actually visited dealerships. So we visited, I remember specifically the dealership near our office. We looked at, I remember we literally walked through the service bays, looked at every single car, and we had technicians telling us the stories of each car. And that was the attention paid by Munich at the highest levels of the company. We had Roger Penske speak in Munich, and he talked about everything that was great with the brand.
Wow.
But he also talked about, here are some of the challenges, here are some of the things that you need to address. And it's a great question because it didn't come by accident. It came by a lot of hard work and determination by the engineers.
So I guess then on the flip side, fast forwarding to today,
Yeah.
how do you market that? Because you're obviously in a situation where small car market, which we can talk about a little bit further, is not at its peak right now at the very least.
Yeah.
So you've got to really come across a little bit more differentiating, I suppose.
Yeah, it's always tricky because you don't want to educate people that maybe there were some challenges. So I think it really becomes like really an owner loyalty story, or as we call it, a win back story. So I want to go back to the people who bought into this brand and love the brand. I mean, just by buying the brand, you're saying, I understand your brand, I love what it stands for, but maybe they had a bad experience along the way. Those are the people that we want to win back and say, give us a second chance, come back. So it's largely a one-to-one conversation, but as part of it will be sharing this Consumer Reports story and other syndicated research that validates that the quality is vastly improved. Like, not only is Countryman number one in the small SUV luxury segment, but it pushes the overall quality of Mini is now number 9 out of every car company.
Wow.
So this is to go from the bottom to the top third.
Yeah.
In a short amount of time. So I think that has to be, honestly, it has to be a one-to-one communication to reach out to those folks and say, hey, like, give us a second chance, come back. Because I think if you loved a Mini at one point in your life, you will always love Mini. But the truth is, we let some of those people down. I think there's an opportunity to bring them back. And I think we have this validated third-party research that we can point to. It's not just, don't take our word for it, but this is a new Mini.
Yeah, and I know that MotoringFile has written about this a few times because there has been a noticeable difference in at least even initial quality.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting to see that validated.
Yeah,
so,
IQS is up, vehicle dependability survey is up. So it's and when you get into some of these, when we have positive news coming from some of these companies, it's extremely expensive to get the rights to communicate it. So because we're kind of small and grassroots driven, sometimes that's a challenge. So it just becomes, and it's also, I do think it's the most meaningful to this, really to the community.
To this audience.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about being a small company and trying to get the word out about these type of products. Again, not necessarily about quality, not necessarily about reaching back out to folks who've owned Minis, but just in general, because I know that Mini is, for those who may not know, is a very small brand in a very big marketplace.
Yeah. So it's literally a small car company by volume. So it's call it 0.2% market share in the United States market. But it's also small in the portfolio. Like the Countryman is our largest vehicle, which is, I always, to give the reference, is roughly the size of a Volkswagen Golf. It's not too far off from that. So we have a small product portfolio at a time in the country when there's this continued migration to trucks and SUVs. And just last month, I think it passed the 70% mark
Wow.
of trucks and SUVs. We're seeing, in terms of the segment performance, that Mini is, in the case of the Countryman is up by 29%. The segment is doing extremely well, the small SUV segment, but there's a lot of competition. In every other segment, we see that the volume is drastically down, and that Mini is down but doing better than the others. So what it translates to is about a 2% drop in sales versus last year. But when you look at the circumstances around us, it's pretty remarkable that it's only 2%. You know, if you look at a brand like Fiat, for example, they are like between 50 and 60% down. So, you know, they're even smaller in their portfolio size than we are. And I'll just give you a reference in terms of advertising and how it changes the way we look at the portfolio. So we do some clever things where if you advertise a Countryman on TV in approximately 10 million households that have TVs hooked up to the internet, we can see if that household then visited the Mini website. So if you see the Countryman commercial, did you visit and we see this correlation. And in the past summer, we ran the new creative for the life cycle for the Hardtop. And I thought the creative was really good. It's dynamic performance. It's fun to drive. It's what I've been really, since I started in the role, I've been really trying to focus on fun to drive. And it's the Hardtop hustling through downtown LA, where we are right now. And when I showed that on TV, it doesn't nearly perform as well as a Countryman. And I think it's because of the segment performance. So even though the Hardtop really is the heart and soul of this company, the reality is the Countryman is where the attention is. It's where the attention is from a growth standpoint. And the reality is the Hardtop is doing fine. The Hardtop, without getting a lot of marketing support, it's the iconic car that we all know for Mini. But the reason I'm telling you the story is because I was fascinated by the fact that a fun to drive, like great spot for the Hardtop was just not getting anyone's attention. And I think it's because a lot of Americans are just saying, yeah, that's small. That's not for me. And that's really interesting. But that is why you're seeing some of the other car companies saying they're not going to make these cars anymore. They're not going to make. There will not be a Volkswagen Beetle. So when you think,
you just saw obviously Chevrolet is canceling the Cruze and so forth. So my hope for Mini is so the good news is, like, to be down 2%, to be a small car company down to 2.8% right now is a strong story in this market that we're in. But if we have attrition of other small cars, my hope is that we start to pick that up.
We gain share. Because if you are passionate about small cars, if you're passionate about, let's say, an iconic car like a Volkswagen Beetle, your only other option, if you're really interested in old European iconic cars, it's the Beetle, the Fiat 500, and the Mini. And I think then those people, it might be interesting to see, you see that the Mini will become, really the icon that's still here with us. And interestingly, and I've told you this before, but we do see some relationships between cross-shopping with Jeep. And I think it's because these are cars with character. These are cars with personality. And I think that we have this depth and substance when it comes to being an icon. And I think that will stay forever.
So I guess that leads to the next question. Do you see a light at the end of the tunnel in terms of this, the current sort of climate around big versus small?
I think if you look at the oil prices and gas prices in the longer term, there doesn't seem to be anything that's going to drastically change. But I'm constantly reminded that this is a volatile market. I also think we have an opportunity to remind people how fun it is to drive these cars. Because as people migrate to things that are bigger, I don't think that they realize what they're giving up. And I think that they get the more utility for sure. And gas is still low. Like let's be honest.
No way around it.
Yeah. But I think if you look at the number of people out there who are driving larger vehicles, I think there's an opportunity to pull them back by selling them on fun to drive. And we're going to have some interesting stories next year in terms of more performance. That's what we're really excited about. You heard the GP is confirmed.
Yes, really exciting.
So you have these bookends. We're sitting in a plug-in hybrid. We'll have a full battery electric in 2020. We'll have the GP in 2020. You can't think of better bookends.
Yeah.
And what I find fascinating about being here in Los Angeles, this is the number one market for electric. This is the number one market for John Cooper Works and performance cars. So you have this market that really is kind of the best of both worlds.
Respects both of those. Do you feel that you have the right product mix right now? I mean, you've got a couple coming out, but do you feel like there's something that's missing, or do you feel like you have what you need?
I mean, if we were truly looking at the American market and building something for the American market specific to go where the growth is, we would undoubtedly go bigger. But that is not, so we could envision, some, let's say, larger format of the Countryman, but I think that the reality is the portfolio does well everywhere else in the world. The portfolio is right-sized for Europe, Asia. So for the U.S. to come in and to say, well, a larger Mini would actually fit the market, we can have that discussion, but does it fit the brand, right? The brand is called Mini. I don't ever lose sight of that. But so you have to think about, does it fit the brand? And can we build a business case to try to justify building something that is for the American market? So to answer your question, I think the portfolio is a global portfolio. I think it's, I think the Countryman is kind of the perfect small SUV. We talked about, all the accolades it's receiving. And I think we could envision maybe some variation of Countryman, but I don't see really the portfolio changing all that much.
So if you've got the product more or less, you've got some new stuff coming online, how do you get folks in these cars, even test driving them, who haven't considered a Mini before? I mean, obviously that's a big part of what you have on your plate, I assume.
Yeah, it's challenging because when you're 0.2% market share, to find the right customers for these cars is really, it's art and science. But there are, and I know the people that follow you and follow White Roof Radio and MotoringFile are going to love this. The thing that's off the charts for Mini, when you look at how Mini customers' attitudes are different from every other car company, it's three things. It gives me a sense of adventure. It is an expression of my personality, and I like that it stands out in a crowd. This is where Mini is off the charts versus every other car company in existence. So we look for this type of customer out there. We're trying to find, let's say, some of the DNA in our current Mini customers and find that out in the universe. But it's art and science. It's not perfect. And then you have to find someone who has a predisposition to a small car. And then, like, we firmly believe, get someone a test drive, get someone behind the wheel. So we just launched a pilot program in LA and San Francisco. You basically just tweet for a test drive. We're working with a partner called Fuji, and we're just trying to make it easy. You don't even have to come to the dealership. Like, if you're within a 10-mile radius of the dealership, we'll come to your home or office. We want to test drive, get people to test
Have you
drive.
seen any early results on that?
So actually, we launched it just 2 weeks ago, but within the first hour, we had 42 requests, which is fantastic when the pilot is only at really 3 dealerships in LA and 3 dealerships in San Francisco. So it's off to a great start. There's a lot of people who reschedule because it's you're at the whim of the mobile device.
Yeah.
But I think I'm glad that we're in that space and making it easier for people to take a test drive, because I think we absolutely have to get people behind the wheel. The other thing that, and I would love feedback from you and from the whole owner community, we have such passionate owners that we love and cherish. Is there a way to get them to kind of evangelize the brand? I know they do already, but is there a way that we can do it in a way that makes it more personal, let's say? I think there's an opportunity there. And this is where I think we're so blessed by having such a fantastic owner base. That's what I was here in LA talking about that yesterday, talking about Mini Takes the States. And we have this owner community that other car companies would love to have. And so, not to abuse the privilege, but we would love to think about a clever way to get more people to experience Mini through the owner community.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry, the gears are turning in my head right now. Some thoughts, but
So I've just spun this into are
you asking me questions now?
Yeah.
No, that's really cool. I know we're probably at time, but I do, I really appreciate the time, Pat. I think, as we look around, there's, like I said, this is really a mature lineup of Minis. You've got a couple coming on production or coming sort of on track in the next year and a half or so. How excited are you about those 2 products?
I'm extremely excited, and because some of them were formulated when I was on the product side. Some of these products that are coming, I had a personal vested interest.
And we're talking about the full electric Mini and, of course, the GP.
Yeah. And also the updated John Cooper Works Clubman and Countryman that we'll have next year. I'm thrilled that those are coming to market, because it's anything that's going to help us with a performance story. I think it's a reminder to everyone, we have not forgotten fun to drive is what drives this brand. I think the electric is great coming back. We were, this better than anyone, we were the first in 2009.
Absolutely.
And Minis are really perfect for electric in terms of ride, handling. I mean, it's just a great experience. And I think that's a growing area. Like, I think that electric will... all you have to do is walk through this auto show to see,
how where it's going.
Yeah.
And you've experienced this car. Is there anything you can tell our listeners?
My experience really comes from the last Mini E. My experience, like, I was blown away by that car, by the torque,
the immediacy of
the power.
everything. Yeah, it was
and
amazing.
so you take the go-kart handling, you throw in a crazy level of torque, and then the regenerative braking, like when you come off the...
Which was very aggressive in that car.
Super aggressive. And I'll never forget, like one of my first weeks on the job, we did a competitive ride and drive. And I started off in a competitor car, not to be named, but I was annoyed that the Mini was driving ahead of me like we were out driving Ferraris. The car was just flying away from me, and there's no way I could keep up with it. And then when I got behind the wheel of the Mini, I realized why Vinny was driving it like that. And it's just infectious. It's just a fun car to drive. So I'm excited for that to come.
And that's
back.
Vinny Kung, who was
the famous Vinny Kung. And I was kind of almost playing the chaperone at that point. I'm like, why you don't have to drive so aggressively? And then I found myself doing the same thing 5 minutes later, and it was everything about the car. It was the fact that it was the way the Mini was set up, and that competitor car was set up for efficiency. It was not set up for fun, and it was not set up for any level of enjoyment.
Yeah, so that's exciting. That's real exciting to hear. And obviously that's a product from, almost 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
But I've heard folks on the BMW side in official press releases and speeches sort of veiled references to how great this is going to be in terms of that electric performance. So should be fun. And of course, probably more important to many of our listeners is the GP, which is coming. I know there's already waiting list at dealers. There's a lot of excitement that's already been built around that car. And I can only imagine that's going to be a great halo product for you to market as well.
Yeah, I had on Thanksgiving Day, I had a text message from Todd Jeffrey in Florida, that's the Todd and Debbie, husband and wife, his and hers GPs, and they sent me a happy Thanksgiving, and there was no question in there about GP, but I was like, happy Thanksgiving to you, thrilled that the GP is coming, and I'm super excited for this car. I think the big question is always, how close does a car come to the concept? And we have just a really good feeling about
really?
Yeah.
Because that concept was pretty wild.
The concept was amazing.
Yeah, it was incredible. Yeah. That's cool.
So we're excited for it. It's out there in testing and camouflage right now.
Yeah, I've seen it,
So I'm super excited for it. I was lucky enough to be here when the last one came out. And one of the only cars that Mini actually has in its, like, in their personal, if you will, storage. Some of them are classics, but we have a GP1 down in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and I was fortunate enough to drive the GP1 and the GP2. I think it's going to be great to get all three of them out. But this car is going to be really special.
Awesome. Well, so we can end it on that. Thank you very much for the time, as always.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Pat.